and welcome to Dialogue Options, our weekly show where we take our gaming theories and opinions and we put them to you. My name's Ellen, I'm the video producer at Games Radar, and I'm joined today by Leon, who is the guides coordinator at Games Radar, and we're going to be talking about next-gen consoles and what that really means for us as gamers. So Leon, you spent a lot of time recently writing about next-gen consoles, but for my benefit, more than anyone else, what do we mean when we talk about next-gen?
It's a hardware upgrade, so the short-term thing you're going to see is basically much prettier games. PlayStation is bringing the PlayStation 5, Xbox so far has revealed the Xbox Series X, but has alluded to the idea that there's going to be at least 3 is the rumour, but a family of Xbox consoles, all called Xbox, with a different kind of name. Whichever one you pick, whatever you go for, essentially it's going to be prettier games. Technology will change things as development moves on, but basically prettier, nicer trees, better water, that's kind of the initial impact.
Who doesn't want nice trees in the games?
Yeah.
And obviously with the promise of all this new technology comes the promise that these consoles are going to be able to do things that the old ones couldn't. So what are the main things that these two consoles are bragging about?
They've got like a lot of different things they're kind of waving flags for, but the 3 main things they're all going for are 8K output, faster loading and ray tracing.
So 8K sounds great, it's twice the amount of K we had,
yes.
But what does it actually mean for us?
Initially you won't see much difference at all because most people have 4K TVs. 8K TVs are very expensive, the ones that do exist. There's only a few of them, so 8K is not a technology that really everyone has now, but they're future-proofing it. We had PS4 Pro, we had Xbox One X come out mid-cycle because TVs upgraded and consoles were outputting 1080 on a 4K screen, didn't look so good. This is essentially going to prevent that, so we probably won't see like a mid-cycle repeat of a new like 1.5 kind of console. But essentially, yeah, it's an 8K output. It'll be able to render in 8K, so when everyone eventually gets 8K TVs, it'll look beautiful.
So it's them saying, here's where we're at, then you catch up with us, and then you'll see the benefits.
Yes, yeah.
And with ray tracing, it's another one, it sounds great. And from my experience of seeing games before and after ray tracing, it mainly looks shinier and wetter,
yes.
Which is great, but what does ray tracing actually mean?
Yeah, so we've all seen the demos where they put the slider across and the light looks more bloomy and there's more reflections, like glass actually reflects what's in front of it. Essentially, ray tracing is computationally modelling light in real time in the same way it might do physics. So you go back and look at old games and there wasn't physics, so you'd walk up to a table and nothing would move, and then it was a big deal that you had real physics and things would roll off the table and move around. It's like doing that for light, so it's very intensive for a GPU to do that. So you don't generally see it in games because they've got enough going on with AI and physics and rendering trees and all this sort of thing, but increases in GPU power means it'll be able to do hardcore ray tracing in real time, which consoles previously just didn't have the power to do. And it'll just make, as we've seen in the demos, it'll make the light look nicer, it'll make it sort of come through windows better, it'll light up sort of smoke and haze. But it needs a hardware update to do that because PS4 and Xbox One can't really do that and run a game at the same time.
I mean, the noise that my PlayStation makes at the moment means that it can't do the base level of operation, so I'll be surprised if it
Launch PS4 Pros have got quite the blast on them now, haven't they?
And so the third one you said was faster loading.
Well, both consoles essentially are going to have SSDs in, so that's a solid-state hard drive as opposed to the old-fashioned sort of whirry ones. And it just means it can access data faster. I think there's probably some architecture in there that we don't know about in terms of how quickly it can get that data out. So an SSD can transfer data in and out of itself at a certain speed, but it depends obviously what it transfers it into. So it's like if the pipe's not big enough, it doesn't matter how fast the SSD is, it won't move the data around. But it means basically things will load faster, so we'll hopefully not see any loading ever again. That's kind of the promise.
Yeah.
The PS5 demo that was being shown internally that leaked used Spider-Man PS4 as an example, which is obviously a big open world, lots of streaming, you're constantly moving around. On PlayStation 4, it loads in about, I think it was 1.8 seconds. Okay. The PS5 demo, essentially running exactly the same code, but on a PS5 hard drive, loads in less than a second, it's about 0.8 of a second. So the ability of these SSDs in both PlayStation and the Xbox to just pump data out as quickly as possible means, you won't have to wait for a loading screen. You maybe won't have to, get in a lift where you get in those loading lifts, and when you get to the top, the level's ready. It just means, no more breaks, no more pauses.
Probably still not fast enough for some people.
Yeah, there'll still be. There's always someone.
So obviously with buying a new console, it means shelling out a lot of money. So something that worries me personally is that all of my old games, my old controller, I've got like a pink Minecraft controller that looks like a pig, that's going to be obsolete and I'm not going to be able to use it anymore. So what do we know about that?
We know for a fact that both PlayStation and Xbox, they know that this is a problem. People like to keep their gear. They don't want to buy one console and immediately lose like shelves worth of stuff. So we know that PlayStation 5 will play PlayStation 4 games, and we know that Xbox Series X, which is only one of the Xboxes being promised, will play every Xbox game ever. There's recently been a new peripheral for the PlayStation 4 which adds bottom buttons to a PS4 pad. We've seen patents for a PlayStation 5 pad which has these buttons built in, so they're already kind of back-proofing your old consoles to work with the new hardware. But it's a well-known thing, I think, for both PlayStation and Microsoft that people don't want to lose their stuff. So at least for the first year, couple of years, everything's probably going to work. Your games are going to carry over. Later on, later in the cycle, when people are starting to do things that your older gear can't do, it could be different control schemes, it could be different sort of technology in the game, then you might find a time when your buttons won't work anymore, or your aim move controller won't work. But I think for the first couple of years, everything's going to be fine.
Just like getting old, isn't it? So your buttons stop working and things don't work like they used to, and then next thing you know, you're
I've lost a few
PS5.
buttons.
That metaphor didn't work all the way there. What's going to be the deal breaker for you with the new consoles?
It's going to be the games. It doesn't matter like how nice the console looks. It doesn't matter sort of how many teraflops it can do and all the sort of technical stuff. It's going to be down to whatever games each one has. So PlayStation is going to release a trailer, it'll be like, here's all our games. Microsoft are going to do the same, and people are going to pick one basically depending on who has the best games. That's the only thing I think that will really make the difference initially.
And PlayStation are already known for having their own exclusives and games that you can't play anywhere else.
I think there's been a big thing this generation really, is that PlayStation's had a lot of good exclusives. We've had like Spider-Man and God of War and things like that recently, even Days Gone, which was a bit 7 out of 10, but it still sold really well. It was a good game. Microsoft has got Games Pass, which is incredible, massive value for money, like monthly subscription, so many games on it, it's really good, but they don't have much in the way of exclusives. So if you have an Xbox only, you sort of lose out on all that kind of PlayStation stuff. Microsoft have gone on a spending spree, so they've bought a load of really interesting studios. So Obsidian behind Outer Worlds, they've bought Ninja Theory, who did obviously Heavenly Sword and Hellblade, In Exile, Playground, who did Forza, and others I've forgotten. And they've created.
Does We Happy Few?
Yes, Compulsion Games as well, and they've also set up a new studio with the old head of Crystal Dynamics. So they've got about 13 internal studios now. So they're really putting like a big stake into making some games. We won't know about those really until they reveal the Xbox fully and we see the launch lineup. But they've made a lot of sort of steps towards rectifying, I think, the biggest problem they've had this generation.
It feels like a smart decision from someone who really only knows the base level about this sort of stuff. It seems like it's going to make the decision for us as the consumer a lot harder to choose between. As
you said, it's expensive, so if you are going to spend a lot of money on one thing, you want to have the most value for money and you want the best games. You don't want to buy a console and then be looking at the other side going, oh, I wish I could play that.
Yeah. So I guess in the run-up we know bits and pieces, but for the most part things are kept quite under wraps.
Yeah.
What do you think, once the console comes out, and also like longer term, once we've had the console for a while, what things do you think we're going to see on them?
Well, the one big thing that Microsoft have made a lot of fuss about, PlayStation are doing it as well, but aren't talking about it quite so much, is sort of cloud gaming and streaming. So Microsoft obviously have Xbox Cloud X, which is essentially the ability to play your Xbox games on a phone, on a tablet, on a TV that's internet connected. Like basically anywhere you can access the internet, you can play your games, you can play your library. PlayStation obviously has PlayStation Now, which they haven't talked about that much. They don't really push it that much, but it's ticking over and it's been working. And they have internally in presentations talked about a longer term future where you can access your sort of PlayStation library, your PlayStation games independent of a console. So this is technology that is in the next generation of consoles. Xbox are making a bigger play for it right now, but PlayStation have an equivalent set of technologies. I think later on they're preparing for, by the end of this by the end of the next generation, I think they're preparing for people to be much more free of hardware. So it could be, you don't have a PlayStation console, you have a PlayStation account, or you have an Xbox account, and you access your games on the console if you're at home, but you can get your phone out, you can log into your friend's PC. That is the thing I think that will change the most, over 3, 4, 5 years. And by the end of PS5, Xbox Series X, hardware could be very much on the back burner, and it could all just be about subscribing to a PlayStation channel, essentially, or an Xbox channel.
Subscribing to an idea of something rather than... So there you have it, that's our roundup of what we know about next gen. We've got a deeper dive into what each console is planning to offer coming soon, so subscribe for that, plus news, reviews and previews.
And don't forget to check Games Radar Plus for all the latest next gen news as it happens. Thanks for watching.
Bye.